and CPR and all this, who pays for that training for all these flagmen? And second question, Comcast, Verizon, these companies that pay these police officers to do these duties, do you think that they're actually going to give us a break if we put a $32 flagman there as opposed to a real police officer?
Mr. Vino.
Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I had quite a presentation for tonight, but most of my points have already been covered by previous speakers. I was one of the selectmen who was opposed to this article. I stand here and ask you, as the members of my board have now, to vote no on this article, because the fair way for this article to have the fair way to proceed with something of this nature is through the collective bargaining. I think part of the problem was that the majority of my board jumped on this without knowing. I'm not making excuses for them, I'm just saying what I feel happened, without knowing what actually was going to happen. When this was voted on, we had no idea what the governor's bill or enactment was even going to be. I've heard a number of things here this evening, and I heard one that these flaggers are first responder and CPR trained. Well, I happened to receive an email as a town official from a company in New Hampshire. So I made a phone call, not stating where I was from. He told me they're not CPR trained, they have no medical training, and they do not leave the post. They just stand there with the flag. So I don't know where that information came from, unless it is in the Massachusetts regulations, which I have not seen, and I don't think anybody in this room has seen. So I strongly urge you to vote no on this article. What this article does, if it's passed the way it is, it can supersede the collective bargaining agreements, it can supersede your town bylaws, it can supersede everything. So I urge you strongly. And the last lady brought up a very good point. If anybody in this room thinks that Verizon is going to take 50 cents off your bill because they have a flagman, you're sadly mistaken. I urge you, please defeat this article.
Ma'am.
Hi, my name is Maureen Oliver. I live at 78 Marblehead Street. I want to start by saying I'm not a police officer. I'm not married to a police officer. I'm not the mother of a police officer, and I'm not the sister of a police officer. I also do not belong to any union. I feel that we should keep police officers on details, and here is why. Number one, the revenue to the town. Every time a police officer is on a detail, a surcharge, at least in most towns I know, a surcharge is paid on that detail. This surcharge goes into the general fund. Number two, police on details have radios and can be pulled off of the detail immediately to respond to an emergency. It's sort of like having a cop on call without the town having to pay for him or her. The town does not need to pay for the detail. The construction company or the utility company pays for the detail. The police officer on detail costs the town nothing. But remember, his or her detail work is bringing some kind of revenue to the town. If each private company hires flagmen, then each of those people will need to be paid for a 40-hour week plus their benefits. This will ultimately not reduce the cost to us, the consumers. In fact, I haven't heard of one utility or company saying they are going to return any savings to the consumer. So we are not saving any money, but in fact, the town is losing money. I've traveled to other states, and I have noticed that people do not pay attention to the flagmen. A police officer can overrule the laws of the road, like going through a red light or crossing the yellow line or driving on the wrong side of the road or going down a one-way the wrong way. What happens if I get into an accident when I'm driving on the wrong side of the road when directed by a flagman? Am I responsible for that accident? Will I be surcharged because the flagman is not a police officer? So how does he or she have the authority to go against the law? Finally, I do not know how many officers, or maybe I just found out, how many officers are on duty at any given time in North Reading, or how many are on a detail. But if there are 5 on duty and 5 on detail, that means we have 10 officers on the streets and ready. But we are only paying for 5, so we get twice the coverage for our town. That means we're getting 5 officers for free and revenue to our town at the same time, revenue that could prevent another override. I urge you to vote no on road flaggers.
Mr. O'Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just as a point of clarification on my position as a member of the board, and then I'd like to make a motion. I wasn't the least bit confused or jumped to any conclusions at all. I knew exactly how I was voting and what I was voting on and what position I was taking. This evening I was asked by the chairman to consider passing over this article in order to allow us to enter into the collective bargaining. We're entering into collective bargaining discussions with the local Teamsters 25 union this month, starting in October, and that we should consider just entering into good faith negotiations with the local union in order to see if we can make some headway from what the majority of the board's standpoint is on this particular issue, and see how that collective bargaining discussion pans out. And I think that's fine. I think that's a good thing to do, because we can always come back in April and propose the same thing. So that's what my position was, and I didn't go hastily into it. I first talked about capping rates on outside detail rates when I first got elected to the board in 1988. So this is not a new issue. It does come up virtually every collective bargaining session, and we have not been able to make much headway up to this point. That being said, what I'd like to do, Mr. Moderator, is offer a motion. I move to table the main motion under Article 11.
Mr. O'Leary.
I'm making the motion to table.
Moderator, point of order.
I'm making a motion to table.
Mr. Moderator, point of order.
Do I have?
Mr. Rowe.
We have a motion before us. The motion has been moved to the question. How can we entertain another motion?
The other one was not accepted.
Give me a moment. The motion to move the question I ruled out of order, so this motion is legitimate. So we now have a motion before us to move it to the table. Mr. O'Leary.
Mr. Moderator, I'm moving to table this particular article because obviously there's some strong feelings on both sides of this particular issue. Both sides have asked to have it discussed in a venue as far as the collective bargaining venue, which is an appropriate place to do it and where we have done it for a number of years. I would ask that this body give us that opportunity without being further divisive. And this motion to table would successfully postpone any further action on this particular article and would allow us to go to the collective bargaining table with a clean slate and with open minds. So I'd ask you to favorably consider the motion to table and move on. Thank you.
And it's not debatable. That's what you get when you have a former moderator on the Board of Selectmen. So this motion is not debatable. So this is a motion to table, which would end discussion. I haven't, yeah, Barbara's checking on me again. Yes, I have two things in writing. Yes, I have it in writing, it's not debatable. This is a motion to table, which... No, it was a motion to pass over. If they pass it over, no action, and that motion carried, we would have gone home about an hour ago. Maybe more. A motion to table? If you all vote this unanimously, one of those young gentlemen over there, my glasses aren't working. Well, actually, Mike will do it. One of those young gentlemen over there will get up and make a motion right after this one passes, and we'll all go home. It's the end of the issue. Same effect.
Other than there's now a main motion on the table, so you're tabling that main motion.
The main motion is tabled, debate is ended, and we go home. If you want to defeat the article, if that's the goal here, to defeat the article, then vote down this motion to table. And if no one's standing up and I see no further debate, we'll move to the main motion, which is to pass the article. And if it's defeated, then we'll all go home. I keep saying go home. He's moving to table the main motion, not to a time certain. He can do it. This is not debatable. So this is a motion to table, which would end debate, then would have a motion to adjourn and all go home. If your goal is to defeat the article, then vote this down, just to be perfectly honest with you. There's no more debate on this. All those in favor? This is a motion to table the main motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? No. Motion failed. We're now on the main motion. Do I see anyone seeking recognition? Mr. Rowe.
Move the question.
All those in favor? He's moved to the question. All those in favor of moving to the question, please say aye. Opposed? We're now on the main motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion fails. Mr. Messeri.
On behalf of the board, we thank you all for coming this evening. Mr. Moderator, I move to adjourn this meeting sine die.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Enjoy the rest of the game.